Hello everyone. Today, Frank and we will be talking about Bordeaux, but mostly Cabernet and Merlot wines from all around the world. So let me see if Frank is here and I can add him to the session. Yes, he's here. Adding Frank. Hello, Frank.
Good evening. Hello.
Good evening.
Hi,
Hello.
everybody. Hi, Irem.
Hi, how are you?
Good, actually.
Good.
Yes. Yes. My last, well, for the moment, my last days of confinement at home because Monday I'm leaving for Bordeaux for 5 days. It
Yeah, I
seems to
was gonna
be,
ask you, like, are you
yeah,
ready?
I've never been more ready than I am now. Yes.
Yeah, I think like normally you're not really used to stay home that long, no? Because we have
No,
been
it's crazy.
traveling.
No,
It's
no,
a
no,
lot.
no,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're gonna be there for 5 days for the
Well,
2019
yeah.
campaign.
Yeah, in reality, let's say 3.5 days. I'm arriving Monday end of the morning, so Monday
Mm-hmm.
afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and flying home somewhere on Friday. So let's say
Okay.
3.5 days. Yeah, but I have to say a great program with premier cruise, second cruise, great program. Yeah, lunches, dinners, everything, everything.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Great.
so
So
all
you
the
are
Corona
you
kilos
going?
I lost. Huh?
You're gonna put them
Will come
back.
back. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great. And we'll be next week, hopefully, we'll be part of your, like a short part of your visit because we're going to
Yes,
do
we'll
a
do
live
that. We'll do
session.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we will.
Okay.
For sure.
Great.
Wednesday evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I will definitely announce it later, but now as everyone is watching us, I want to say it again. So next
Yeah.
week on Wednesday, we are going to do a live session from Bordeaux. I'm not going
Yeah.
to be in Bordeaux. Frank will be in Bordeaux, but we're going to
I'll be
be
in
like
Bordeaux.
a kind of inside of like 2019 campaign, no? 19 vintage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've already been buying 19 vintage. As you know,
Hmm.
the campaign has taken off last week.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, I did taste a few samples that were sent to me at home.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I cannot make a judgment, a real judgment right now. My feeling was that 19 seems to be really good.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe not a top vintage, but top vintage is you've got that one or two out of 10 years, once or twice in a decade in Bordeaux. And
Hmm.
I'm not sure if 19 will be that great, but it is certainly a very good vintage from what I tasted until now, and then from what you hear until now.
Hmm.
And of course, the En Primeur campaign is taking place in dreadful circumstances.
Yeah.
The usual tastings have all been cancelled or postponed, well, basically cancelled. So that's a major setback. Already, Bordeaux was experiencing problems for a year
Hmm.
now, I would say, in the high end and in the low end.
Hmm.
And then, um, and then, of course, with COVID-19, the market is quite depressed. Well, let's say the market is very mixed. Let's put it like this. It's not just depressed.
Hmm.
So in any case, it seems that I mean the 2019 En Primeur campaign started on the worst moment possible, and
Yeah.
prices came down. Basically, with a few exceptions, there are not all wines have been offered yet. Um,
Hmm.
there are a few chateaux on the right bank, like Tertre, Rotteboeuf, and L'Angelus, that have been offered at the same price as last year.
Hmm.
But on the left bank, until now, the top names that did come out, like let's say Pontet-Canet, Palmer, Mouton, they all went down 30 to 35% compared to last year,
Wow.
and that yeah, and that makes it a very interesting year to buy.
Yeah.
I think what the chateaus are doing is they're not selling everything. It seems to me
Mm-hmm.
that the general tactics are to sell one quantity, a premier tranche without any tranches following up.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it looks right now, who knows how it will change. But
Yeah.
from what I hear, some of the wines I just mentioned very quickly sold out, and that was it. So let's see where it all goes.
Yeah.
It's still too early to say how 20 is going to be, and I haven't heard too much about it. What I hear from Spain is that 20 is going to be a very difficult vintage already,
Mm-hmm.
because in Spain it rains, it rains, it rains, and the vineyards are in a dreadful state now. There's the
Yeah,
thunder
and also
everywhere,
some,
and yeah,
and also in some, in the beginning of April, there was also like almost like a frost risk, especially in
yeah,
Priorat. And then after that,
yeah,
also the rains, and yeah, it's going to be difficult here. But going back to
yeah.
2019 Bordeaux, yes, we don't know maybe it is going to be, if it is going to be top quality or not, but it is going to be a year that definitely it will be like really remembered for a long time because of all the situations and everything.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. But I did buy meanwhile quite a bit.
Okay.
Not for the Russian market,
Mm-hmm.
because for a Russian supermarket chain we do not buy en primeur. It makes
En
no
primeur.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm buying for a new investment fund in Switzerland, a wine investment fund, and
Mm-hmm.
it seems to be a particularly good moment to start, because it seems
Yeah.
to be a really 19 Bordeaux. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, everything brings positive parts or negative parts. So maybe for the investment in wine investment, this could be a positive thing to consider. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So then, okay, we
Irem,
will we will leave the Bordeaux part.
yeah.
Yes.
Your connection is not very
What's
good.
happening?
You
Yeah.
sometimes
Do you hear me
freeze,
now?
and your voice freezes as well every now and then. Yeah,
Really? Really? Okay.
yeah,
Let
yeah,
me
yeah,
see. How
yeah,
is it now?
yeah, yeah. Well, anyway,
Okay.
never mind. But
Let's see. I hope now. Is it good now?
on and off. Yeah, on and off.
Okay, let's see.
Never
Let's
mind.
try
Maybe
to
it's my
make it.
connection. I don't know.
Okay.
But I see your the video freezes regularly a
Oh
bit,
yeah.
and your
Uh-huh.
voice as well a bit. But never
Okay.
mind.
I
So
see you and I hear you really well. I don't know, maybe it's
okay,
on your side,
hmm,
but let's see.
hmm,
As long as
let's see.
people can hear both of us and see both of us
Yeah,
well, then it's good.
it's fine.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the Bordeaux part, like really in detail, we can leave it for the next week. So
Yes,
today, I mean,
absolutely.
yeah, we can. Do you want to do a general introduction to Bordeaux, or should we talk about Cabernet and Merlot like worldwide?
Let's talk
How
about
should we?
Cabernet and Merlot worldwide. Huh?
Okay.
Just to refresh everybody's mind, Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot are two genetically linked varieties originating in Bordeaux. Um, the parent that they have in common is the Cabernet Franc. So Cabernet Franc is clearly the oldest variety of the classic Bordeaux varieties. Um, Possibly originating in the Basque country, maybe even in Spain, who knows? It seems to have genetical links with the Hondarribi varieties from the Basque country in Spain. Um, so Cabernet Sauvignon is obviously a crossing between Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc, and Merlot is a crossing between Cabernet Franc and Magdeleine Noire de Charente. So um, I always found in my life that the two varieties have a lot in common, especially if you think of the sort of aroma profile of the two. Nevertheless, of course, and they're both tannic varieties, but of course there's a difference as well. There's an important difference, and that the the Merlot, which has a slightly thinner skin, ripens a bit easier, a bit faster than Cabernet Sauvignon. Is therefore less picky on the soils where it grows. So as you can see in Bordeaux, the very best soils, meaning the best draining soils, are the ones where you will find most Cabernet Sauvignon, meaning left bank, meaning Haute Médoc, where you've got thick layers of gravel that are the sort of the best soil you will find in Bordeaux. And I would say that from my point of view, Cabernet Sauvignon is clearly the better grape. I don't know why no one is ever saying that, but it is the better grape. It's got a thicker skin. It will give you wines with more aging potential, with better acidity, lower alcohol, in a good vintage, better quality tannins. The only problem with Cabernet Sauvignon in Bordeaux is that to make 100% Cabernet Sauvignon in Bordeaux is very, very difficult because it happens very rarely. There have been the odd vintages of Latour and Léoville-Las Cases where they made 100% or close to 100% Cabernet Sauvignon, but it's very, very rare. And basically because in that climate, the wine is too harsh, undrinkable for the first 20 years. And that is where the Merlot comes in, because blending in with Merlot, you add that touch of, let's call it friendliness, a bit of friendliness to the wine, a bit, huh? Let's not exaggerate it, but it helps. And for me, that is the main reason why Bordeaux is always a blend. And in other parts of Bordeaux, it's the other way around. The soil wouldn't be good enough for Cabernet Sauvignon, so they planted Merlot. And the Cabernet would add a bit of stamina, a bit of tannin, and longevity, basically.
But they also...
And thinking about that, it means that blending in Bordeaux really means something. It really means something. And by the way, what you also see, generally speaking, is that over the years in Bordeaux, Merlot has been growing a lot. On the lower end to produce the easy drinking wines. Let's not forget that Bordeaux made a huge switch from white to red production in the last 40 years. 40 years ago, they made much more white wine than they do nowadays. But on the high end, you also see that in 40, 50 years' time, the parts of Merlot have increased simply to make the wines a bit more accessible, which helps to sell. It's as simple as that. It helps to sell.
Yeah. But also, like going back to the differences that they have, they also both have some vegetal character, no? We normally see that vegetal character more in Cabernet Sauvignon, but also Merlot gives this vegetal character depending on the climate and the soil, right?
Sorry, that's where I couldn't understand what you said because your voice froze.
Okay.
Say it again.
I was saying normally we see a more vegetal character in Cabernet Sauvignon, but also depending on the climate and the soil, Merlot also gives some vegetal notes, right?
Yes, I agree with that. Yes, Cabernet Sauvignon would be more prone to vegetal character and to bell pepper and that kind of aroma, or mintiness or eucalyptus, depending on where you are, of course, compared to Merlot. And when you talk about fruit aromas in Cabernet Sauvignon, it'll be closer to blueberry, cassis, and in Merlot it will easily get a bit more plummy. Huh? But these are not huge differences, I would say. They're sort of small differences. It's not always. It's easy to say it's very different, but in reality, when you taste it, it's not always that easy, actually.
Yeah, and to mix them in a blind tasting, can you mix Cabernet Franc and Merlot, or is it always like it's easy to differentiate?
No, it's not always easy. It's not always easy. No. It's easy when you know it.
Yeah.
But blind tasting without really knowing it's not always that easy. But blind tasting never is easy. You know, it's already difficult enough to blind taste the difference between a lesser wine from a great vintage and a great wine from a poor vintage. You know, and it's very difficult to define what is what. And but of course, I teach Bordeaux very regularly in diploma course for the Wine Academy in Roest. And we always, of course, make the comparison between left bank and right bank. And I have to say, with young wines, it's usually not that complicated, because as soon as you get that sort of rich, plummy smell and you sense the higher alcohol, you know that you are in a Merlot-based wine, you know. And and the opposite for Cabernet Sauvignon. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean Bordeaux, obviously, yes. When we say Cabernet and Merlot, the first thing we remember is of is Bordeaux, but also there's amazing examples of Cabernet and Merlot all around the world.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But basically, I think because especially Cabernet Sauvignon,
Mm-hmm.
to a little bit lesser extent Merlot, they're both great grape varieties. Of course, the discussion is out on what is the best red grape variety in the world, and the trend would be nowadays to say Pinot
Pinot
Noir,
Noir. Yeah.
maybe Nebbiolo.
Yeah.
But I would actually defend Cabernet Sauvignon. Yeah, I would. And
Mm-hmm.
it's something that it took me a long time to actually to get that, to understand that. But um, but we've talked about this before, of course. But the trend in the last 20 years is to talk about elegance and this and that and single vineyard wines, and so the trend is for Burgundy, not for Bordeaux. And
Mm-hmm.
um, and that goes in many aspects. So, but I've told it before in previous talks. But when I was working in Palais Coburg and had the opportunity to taste the world's greatest wines from older vintages, I actually realized, actually with a shock, that the very best wines on the long run were the Cabernet-based wines from Bordeaux, the left bank
Bordeaux.
wines from Bordeaux. Yeah, and by
Okay.
far, actually, by far.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So
amazing
then
stuff once they get
here.
sold.
Here I have a question. Like, then I'm really
Hmm.
curious. Okay, so yes, we know that, and also if you look at the ratings, yes, we see that left bank wines, first groves, are better quality or better rating than Napa called Cabernet Sauvignons. But then
Hmm.
why are they way more expensive than left bank first groves?
The top napas, like Screaming Eagle,
Yeah, top Napas. Yeah,
because
yeah,
there's no
Screaming
volume.
Eagle.
There's no
Is
volume.
it because yeah?
If I, I've never been in Screaming Eagle, but from what I remember, the production is below 10,000 bottles per year, which is
Mm-hmm.
nothing, and that really pushes the prices up. But the same can be said from Petrus. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have. It's a very interesting thing because look at Petrus. Petrus produces in a good vintage 30,000 bottles.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yeah.
Whereas Latour in a good vintage produces, I think, 110,000 bottles, maybe even a bit more. Mouton, something similar to that. Haut-Brion is a bit smaller, but still they all produce more than Petrus. And with that small volume, Petrus has become a very expensive wine, like Le Pen, which has even smaller volume. So
Mm-hmm.
the lack of availability pushes the prices up. And
Mm-hmm.
what I keep on wondering is whether the fact that these wines are so expensive is not pushing their ratings up as well. Because quite honestly, um, I can't say this for Le Pen, but in comparative tastings or in tastings of old vintages Bordeaux, Petrus for me never came to the level of, let's say, a Latour or a Mouton in a great vintage when the wines were old. So I was all the time thinking, but why is Petrus so bloody expensive? Well, because there is no volume. That's the only reason. Huh? But you understand what I
Is
say?
it?
Price
Yeah.
also price also pushes up the ratings. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we
But also with if we go back to Petrus, do you think is it the only reason the volume, or is it also Petrus became like a really status symbol for wine drinkers? Like in 60s, Kennedy saying that it is his favorite wine, and then 80s, Robert Parker also like glorified Petrus, and then it became like a status symbol, and then it price, or was it always expensive?
It has always been very expensive. It has
No.
always been a very famous wine, Petrus. So I'm not saying it's not a good wine. That's not what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying. But whether it is really that good, that it is really in some vintages the best wine of Bordeaux, as some people would say, I strongly doubt that. Huh? I strongly doubt that. It's Merlot based, and I don't think, I don't know. I'm a little bit less positive about Merlot than I would be about Cabernet Sauvignon or even about Cabernet Franc, because even in Saint-Emilion, my votes would usually go to Cheval Blanc, which I usually find better than the other Premier Crus, which are Merlot based. But Cheval Blanc is Cabernet Franc based, and it's a
Yeah.
great wine, a great wine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, Parker has been doing a lot for the right bank of Bordeaux. He has been giving very high ratings to the Merlot-based wines. I mean, a wine like Pavie, that wine was pushed up by the Parker ratings for sure. You know, and actually for me, Pavie is another wine where I would say it's completely overrated. I don't think Pavie should be a Premier Cru Classé A. I don't think it belongs there. Even with l'Angelus, I have my doubts, but with Pavie, I have strong doubts. Yeah, it shouldn't be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's
There's
talk
a
about
question.
other wines in the world.
Yes, and
What's the
also
question?
there's a
What's the question?
question. Question is asking, okay, do Torres have Cabernet Sauvignon and or Merlot in Priorat? And Frank, would you give it positive comment to these two Bordeaux varietals being used on Garnacha, being used in Garnacha, Carignana territory, having a very different. Okay, I don't see the rest of the question, sorry. Just a second. Okay,
I
having
didn't.
very different scope of what Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot can offer. Okay,
Sorry, and where was that? Because I missed the first part of what you said.
okay. Garnacha and Carignana territory.
In Spain.
Yeah, in Spain.
Which wine are we talking about then? Priorat.
Yeah, Priorat.
And we're
So
talking
what do
about
you think
Cabernet
about
Sauvignon and
Cabernet
Merlot.
Sauvignon and Merlot in Priorat?
Ah, okay, okay. Merlot, not no. I certainly do not believe in Merlot because I mean, what is the biggest problem of Priorat? The too high alcohol of Garnacha. Well, Merlot isn't any better. You know, you'll have exactly the same problem, if not worse. The only thing Merlot has is a bit more tannin, or clearly more tannin than Garnacha. Cabernet Sauvignon, yes. I'm thinking about it, but if you think, for example, about Clos Mogador, they use a relatively high percentage of Syrah, and that in a way that seems to work better. Clos Mogador is definitely one of my favorites, but from what I hear, by the way, the share of French grape varieties in Priorat is going down. And not only the share but also the total surface. I'm not sure if the French varieties really add a lot to Priorat. I think with Grenache and Carignana they can do the
Yeah.
rest. But let's talk
And
about Torres, because
yeah,
Torres is of course Torres became world famous actually
famous with
because of his
Cabernet
Bordeaux
Sauvignon.
blend, Grand
Yeah,
Corona's
but
Black Label.
before that, going back to Priorat question for Torres, Torres has Garnacha and Carignana plantings, but also has some Syrah plantings in Priorat.
Yeah.
But I don't think that we have Merlot in Priorat. No, I'm not really sure, 100%, but I don't recall
Well,
any Merlot in
somebody
Priorat.
just wrote that I should taste a Merlot from the Porrera area. I just saw that coming by. Somebody wrote that.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know. I wonder why you would need that. But I'm sure you can make great wine, and especially in a slightly cooler vintage. But you would make equally great wine with Carignana, for example.
Yeah, but now going back to Torres and Cabernet Sauvignon, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
1970, Gran Corona's Black
Yeah.
Label. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Gran Corona's Black Label. Nowadays, Mas La Plana. But it was in a time, the 1970s, that in Spain and Italy, many famous growers were actually planting the Bordeaux varieties. It was a trend. At that time, it was a trend. And the funny thing is, it was seen as something visionary. I think if you would now plant Cabernet Merlot in Spain and Italy, you're not seen as a visionary anymore. They would say, most people would say, why the hell are you doing that? Why are you not sticking to local varieties, to your own
Yeah. Now
varieties?
that's
But it
if you do the local ones, now it is visionary. Like also we do
exactly.
in Torres ancestral varieties. Yeah.
Well, actually, this is a funny story I wanted to tell because I once met Miguel Torres
Mm-hmm.
once, and that's meanwhile, I think 5 years ago, and I was asked to interview him in Amsterdam. He was making a kind of promotional tour. So we had a
Mm-hmm.
meeting in a hotel, and a very nice man, and he started talking about the reintroduction of ancestral varieties. And then I
Mm-hmm.
asked him a question. I said, Mr. Torres, I think it's really great that you're doing this, but the truth is that you actually became very famous in the 1970s with a Bordeaux blend planted on
Mm-hmm.
in the vineyard of your ancestors in Masla Plana, Gran Corona's
Mm-hmm.
black label. And he smiled and he said, "Yeah, well, that's some old press clippings from that time." And he said, and he explained how the 1970 Gran Corona's Black Label beat Chateau Latour, amongst others, in a blind tasting. But then he said,
Mm-hmm.
but look at the vintage of Latour, and it was actually 1973, which was a very poor vintage of Latour.
Vintage, yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
he was laughing. He said, he admitted that it was not a very fair comparison because
Mm-hmm.
to be very honest, in a Latour in a great vintage would not be beaten by any Masla Plana. That's out of the question, and Mr. Torres knew that as well. But then we talked a little bit further about it, and I asked him if you would now have to replant Masla Plana completely or start all over, would you still plant Bordeaux varieties? And he said, to be honest, he said,
Mm-hmm.
now I would choose for Spanish varieties, but at that time it was a sign of the times. It belonged in that epoch, and it was the time that Sassicaia was planted, 60s, 70s. It was the time that Ornellaia came. It was the time that Darmaggi, this wine from Angela Gaia, which is a Cabernet wine from
Mm.
Barbaresco.
I know
I
that
mean,
one.
for crying out loud, who needs a Cabernet Sauvignon from Barbaresco? That's crazy.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was visionary, it was new, it was experimental, and people loved it. Times have
Yeah.
changed. Times have changed.
Exactly. But I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, it is 60s, so it is like technically like 60 years ago.
yeah.
Trends change, times change, but also climate was different as well, no?
Sorry, climate was
So
different. Yeah,
the
true.
climate was different too, yeah.
True,
Yeah.
true, 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 true. Yeah,
Hmm.
but having said all that, Masla Plana is of course a beautiful wine. Although I think it is a bit overrated. What is for me even more overrated is Maceto. My
Mm.
God, 100% Merlot. It's too smooth. It's got way too much alcohol. It's for me very one-dimensional, and it is very well made. I'm the first one to say it's very well made, but I would never buy a bottle of Maceto in my life. It's outrageously expensive for what it is, but
Hmm.
people
Yeah.
just drool on it. They think it's great.
I
I don't
think
think so.
if I'm not wrong, Moseto's production is less than Petrus. So maybe
Say,
the Moseto's production, the bottles that they produce is less than Petrus. So I think it's like,
yes, yes, it
yeah.
is. It's a small
So maybe
production,
that's
but I have
why it's
a
so expensive.
true, and I have a feeling that they're slowly increasing the production because they built a separate small winery for Maceto.
Hmm.
Last
Hmm.
time I visited Ornellaia, they showed us. We didn't visit it, but they showed us a small building being constructed in the middle of the vineyard, and the idea was to
Yeah, I
create a
was
new
there.
Maceto winery. Ah, you were in that group? Yes,
Yeah, yeah, I
exactly.
was there. I was there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I was thinking, oh my God, this means that they're going to produce more of it for sure because it makes a lot of money.
So they
Ornellaia
sell
is,
it.
huh?
Sorry, and also they sell it like the sales is totally different from Ornellaia. They sell it only through negociants,
Yeah, yeah,
Museto.
exactly. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. But Ornellaia, I visited a few times in my life, maybe four altogether, and each beats me why that wine is so good. Because I have to admit, it's really a good wine, Ornellaia, and there are times that I would rather buy Ornellaia than Sassicaia. But when you stand in that vineyard and you think, and it's always hot and it's very humid, and the soil seems a bit rich, and I cannot help wondering how do they manage to make such a good wine here? Because to me, the circumstances do not seem perfect to produce great wine. And generally speaking, each time I have that feeling each time I go to Bulgaria, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I don't know, is this really so great? What is it with Bulgaria? It's something I still haven't understood, I think. No, no.
Yeah. If you haven't understood yet, I don't even dare
It will
to
never
try to
come.
understand.
No,
Yeah. There's a
no,
question about Petrus. Gonca is saying, if we die without drinking a good vintage of Petrus, do we miss really a big thing as a wine lover? Because some of
no,
us will never
no.
has a chance to do that. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, I wouldn't
I
say
never
so.
tasted
No,
Petrus.
I think there's a fair chance with Petrus that you would be maybe even a bit disappointed because the problem when wine gets so expensive is that you've got such high expectations that the risk that you're always biased. Let's put it like this: when you taste very expensive wines, not just Petrus but any, let's say Romanée Conti or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, you're always biased because you know you're going to drink something very expensive. So there's always the risk that either you're disappointed, you're thinking, "My God, I expected so much more for so much money," or you will find greatness in the wine and it isn't there just because you know it's very expensive. It's very difficult to have to have your mind clear when you taste wines with that at that price level. For everybody, for me, for you, for everybody, we all suffer from that. You should
Yeah.
you should in reality taste those wines blind. Yeah,
Blind, yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
without knowing the price, yeah.
yeah. But the
Exactly.
chance that you will ever get that possibility is very small, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, one question. 100% Merlot, really iconic examples apart from the Petrus and Maceto. Is there any other one, 100% Merlot?
Well, let's say Pomerol, of course, Le Pen and all that. Although
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
sometimes they
apart from
contain a bit
those
of Cabernet
ones.
Franc,
Yeah, apart from the
Maceto.
usual
Mm,
Napa and
yeah,
Bordeaux.
yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of it. I'm sure there are actually. In Italy, there are of
Mhm.
course copycats of Maceto. Um, there are very beautiful Merlots in the south of Switzerland in the Ticino,
Oh,
Tessin.
really? Oh,
Yeah,
never
yeah, yeah.
tasted.
It's Switzerland is a fascinating wine country. Really, it's one of my best wine trips ever for me
Uh-huh.
personally was one that I made in Switzerland years ago when I was establishing the wine cellar of Park Hotel Vietsnoes, because you got in the most beautiful, most interesting wine regions, and nobody was trying to make wine to impress. Everybody was just
Uh-huh.
trying to make really good wine. And actually, in the south, on the border with Italy, funny enough, in the Tessin Ticino area, they work with Merlot, and it's not too hot there, and the wine still kept a good freshness. Uh, Maybe not great wines, but really good wines, and very very interesting, very interesting. Yeah,
Hmm.
I loved it.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll put it in my list because we have two friends. They were here last night for dinner because
really.
this weekend they're gonna move to Switzerland. So
Oh,
it was
really?
like a farewell dinner, yeah. And then we
Okay.
plan to visit them hopefully if we can travel again.
Mm,
So I'll keep an eye on those
you
wines and
should.
we
You should. Where
hopefully we
where
can
are
go
they
to
going
see
in Switzerland? Do you know?
Zurich.
Zurich. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, I
and
have
of
one
course,
last
yeah,
question.
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Uh, so what do you think about like apart from the usual Bordeaux blend areas, like obviously Stellenbosch is also a usual one, but what do you think the Stellenbosch South African Bordeaux blends? Do you think they can
Mm,
compete with the others in the long run?
mm. Well, one wine that I tasted on a number of occasions, was Rubicon,
Mm-hmm.
which, if I remember well, from Meerlust Winery. I hope I'm not getting this completely wrong. Which I visited once, the one time I
Mm-hmm.
was in South Africa. Now, what I remember from that visit is that I had the impression there was a bit of a problem with Brettanomyces in recent vintages. I could be wrong, but that I felt that. But but otherwise I think there are. I mean, Cabernet Sauvignon is one of the best varieties in the world, and Merlot is a runner-up. Merlot is not exactly the same level, but it's a very good variety. So to make great wine in a Bordeaux blend is, I think, it's possible in many places in the world.
Yes.
South Africa, California, and not just Napa Valley, because actually one of my favorites would be Rich Montebello, which is a Bordeaux blend from outside Napa Valley. It's from the Santa Cruz Mountains, and oh, that is great stuff actually, and it's not that expensive. Everybody should have tried Rich Montebello once, because that is one of the world's great red wines, and not too expensive. Of course, if you go to Napa, a lot of wines will be varietal Cabernet Sauvignon, or maybe have a very small percentage of Merlot. But you know what? They don't need that blending factor like they do in Bordeaux, and that's of course the difference. In Bordeaux, you need the Merlot to make the Cabernet a bit accessible, but in Napa you don't need that, because the Cabernet by itself already has a more accessible character compared to Bordeaux. It's much warmer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great, perfect. I think we covered quite a lot. No?
Yes.
And yeah, if I don't see any more questions at the moment. I'm trying to see if I miss anything. No, there's
Ferdinand
no other
also
questions,
likes
I think.
Montebello.
Yeah. Hi, Ferdinand.
Ferdinand also likes Montebello. He should. Yeah, no. So I'm really looking forward to Bordeaux next week. I hope it will all go well. I'm not nervous, but yeah, I don't know. It's such a crazy situation at the moment, and I read today that flights are still getting cancelled and whatever. But I'm pretty sure I'll make it to Bordeaux next week, because if my flight gets cancelled, I'll take the train. I'll find a way. And as we agreed, in a week from now, we will talk about the 2019 Bordeaux vintage. By that time, I will have tasted plenty of wines, and I'll be able to comment on that. And
Great.
I'm really looking forward to it. I will also write my tasting notes on Facebook actually.
Yeah,
I've for a long time. It's a long time ago that I went to the En Primeur tastings. I usually either I had no business there, and also I didn't like it too much, too many people. Well, this time there's no risk of too many people. I'll probably be one of the very few, and probably one of the very first foreigners to go there, because France opens up on the 15th and I'm flying on the 15th. What I never liked on Facebook was all those people visiting chateaus and saying, look where I am now, look, I'm here, look what a dinner, and then not sharing any information about the vintage and all that. So I promise I will do better than that. I'll write tasting notes, and I'll tell you how it is. Okay.
Perfect. We are looking forward to that.
Yes, even if I'm having lunch at Cheval Blanc, I will not hide the fact that I will have lunch at Cheval Blanc, but I will talk about the wines. I will. Yeah.
You know what? Sometimes I hate you, Frank, but
thank you, Irem. You're welcome.
Yeah, I am here.
But I sometimes hate you too. I wish I was in Barcelona, but I'm not. So, you know?
I mean, life is not perfect all the time.
No, exactly.
Great.
Okay, guys, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for looking, and see you all next week. Irem, thanks. See you next week.
Have a nice flight and safe travels.
And see you early July in Barcelona.
Because
that's going
news.
to be next one. Yeah. 1st of July, Spain opens. So I might very well be in Barcelona on the 1st of July.
Okay then, great. I'll see you in the lifetime.
Very good.
Bye.
Bye everybody.
Bye everyone. Bye.